Hello Midnights. We hope you enjoy our stories. Next one, The Poltergeist Curse. Let us know where you are listening from and don't forget to subscribe. The enduring enigma of the Poltergeist films, a chilling exploration of suburban dread and supernatural phenomena, has captivated audiences for decades. Yet, beyond its cinematic scares, the series has become almost as famous for the persistent and unsettling rumors of a curse or haunting that allegedly plagued its cast and crew. Ever since the original Poltergeist movie burst onto screens in 1982, whispers of real-life tragedies and strange occurrences have circulated, fueling the notion that the films themselves were somehow cursed, touched by something profoundly dark and unseen. The core of the Poltergeist mystique lies in the unexpected and often tragic deaths of several key actors shortly after their involvement in the films. This string of unfortunate events, coupled with the film's subject matter, a family tormented by malevolent spirits who cross over from another dimension, created a fertile ground for supernatural speculation, blurring the lines between cinematic fiction and terrifying reality. The pervasive nature of these rumors has led to widespread discussion in both serious film analyses and sensationalized tabloids, becoming a significant part of the franchise's legacy. This curse narrative is not merely anecdotal. It has been explored in documentaries, extensively covered by news outlets, and debated by film historians and paranormal enthusiasts alike, solidifying its place in pop culture lore. The first Poltergeist film, directed by Tobe Hooper and produced by Steven Spielberg, was a massive critical and commercial success. However, it was also the film that first gave rise to the chilling rumors, casting a long shadow over its legacy. The most prominent and heartbreaking tragedies associated with the original film include Dominique Dunne, Dana Freeling. Just months after the release of Poltergeist, Dominique Dunne, who played the eldest daughter Dana, was tragically murdered by her ex-boyfriend, John Thomas Sweeney, in November 1982 at the age of 22. Sweeney, whom Dunne had recently separated from, appeared at her West Hollywood home pleading for reconciliation. When she refused, he violently assaulted and strangled her until she was unconscious, leaving her to die in her driveway. She was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center and placed on life support but died 5 days later. Sweeney was later convicted of voluntary manslaughter, a verdict that was widely controversial and perceived by many, including Dunne's father, writer Dominique Dunne, as a shocking miscarriage of justice due to his relatively light sentence of 6.5 years, of which he served only 3.5. News outlets, from the New York Times to entertainment magazines like People, covered her brutal murder extensively, often highlighting the proximity of her death to the film's release. Tabloids, in particular, were quick to draw sensational connections, inadvertently fanning the flames of the curse theory and speculating if the darkness of the film had somehow manifested in reality, reaching out to claim its young star. This tragic event not only shocked Hollywood but also ignited the public's morbid curiosity about the film's potential connection to real-life horror. Heather O'Rourke, Carol Ann Freeling, the angelic young star of the franchise, Heather O'Rourke, who portrayed the iconic Carol Ann in all 3 films, died unexpectedly at the age of 12 in February 1988 while Poltergeist 3 was in post-production. O'Rourke had been misdiagnosed with Crohn's disease in early 1987, receiving cortisone treatments that caused noticeable facial swelling. On January 31, 1988, she began experiencing flu-like symptoms. The following morning, she collapsed at home and suffered a cardiac arrest. She was rushed to the hospital and, despite efforts to revive her, died during emergency surgery to correct an acute bowel obstruction caused by congenital stenosis of the intestine, complicated by a septic shock. Her death, sudden and at such a tender age, stunned the public and deeply affected her co-stars. News reports, particularly in the days following her death, often drew stark parallels to Dunne's fate, with some openly questioning whether the film held a malevolent energy that targeted its most vulnerable. The image of her innocent face, uttering the chilling "they're here," gained an even more profound and tragic resonance after her death, a narrative quickly picked up by the media, adding another layer of grief and dread to the franchise that seemed to consume its youngest stars. The particularly unsettling aspect for many was her character's central role as the conduit for the spirits, drawing an eerie parallel between her on-screen vulnerability and her real-life demise. The sequels only seemed to amplify the whispers, as if the dark energy unleashed by the first film had merely found new vessels, a chilling confirmation for those who believed the curse was actively unfolding. Julian Beck, Reverend Henry Kane, the actor who portrayed the terrifying Reverend Henry Kane in Poltergeist 2, The Other Side, died of stomach cancer in September 1985, at the age of 60, before the film's release. Beck had been diagnosed with stomach cancer in 1983. His already gone appearance in the film, a chilling consequence of his advanced illness, only added to the eerie atmosphere surrounding his character and the alleged curse. His performance was undeniably unsettling, a living embodiment of decay and malevolence. While his illness was publicly known, the timing of his passing, before audiences could even fully grasp the pure terror he embodied on screen, contributed to the growing curse narrative in tabloid and entertainment news, often presented as another victim of the film's dark influence. Some wondered if the sheer malevolence he embodied on screen had somehow taken a spiritual toll on his own already weakened vitality, draining him as he portrayed such an evil force. Will Sampson, Will Sampson, who played the benevolent Native American shaman Taylor in Poltergeist 2, passed away in June 1987, at the age of 53, due to complications from a lung heart transplant. Sampson suffered from scleroderma, a chronic degenerative condition that affected his organs. He underwent the high-risk transplant in Houston but died 43 days later from post-operative kidney failure. A real-life shaman and a respected elder of the Muskogee Nation, Sampson reportedly performed an on-set exorcism on the filming location of Poltergeist 2 in an attempt to cleanse it of negative energy. He openly spoke to cast and crew about sensing a malevolent presence, an unholy entity, that he believed was affecting the production and potentially the cast, claiming the set was dirty. News outlets, particularly those focusing on pop culture and the unexplained, seized upon this story, reporting Sampson's first-hand account of spiritual distress and his efforts to counteract it. This added significant weight to the supernatural claims, as it came from someone with acknowledged spiritual insight, making his death, despite his pre-existing condition, feel like another tragic piece of the puzzle, perhaps even a consequence of his direct confrontation with the alleged entity. What did he sense on that set that compelled him, a man deeply rooted in spiritual traditions, to undertake such a ritual? Did his intervention temporarily ward off disaster, or merely delay the inevitable? Lou Perryman, Pugsley, though a minor role in the original Poltergeist, he played Pugsley. Actor Lou Perryman's brutal murder in 2009 further solidified the curse in the minds of some. Perryman was tragically hacked to death with an axe in his Austin, Texas home by a recently released convict, Seth Christopher Tatum, who claimed to be intoxicated and not taking his medication. While decades removed from the film's release, the violent and senseless nature of his death was quickly added to the grim tally by those who believed in the overarching hex, extending the reach of the alleged curse far beyond the initial time frame and demonstrating its perceived lingering power. The conviction that the Poltergeist films are cursed or haunted stems from a confluence of factors, each feeding into a chilling narrative that blurs the lines between cinematic horror and real-life dread. The unprecedented string of tragic deaths. This is the most compelling and frequently cited reason. The deaths of four principal actors, Dominique Dunne, Heather O'Rourke, Julian Beck, and Will Sampson, within a relatively short span, 6 years for the initial three, and Perryman later, directly tied to the period of the trilogy's production and release, is statistically striking for any film franchise, let alone one dealing with supernatural themes. This concentration of misfortune defied simple statistical probability in the eyes of many. Youth and innocence targeted. The deaths of Dominique Dunne at 22 and particularly Heather O'Rourke at 12 were profoundly shocking due to their youth and seemingly random nature. Dunne's murder, O'Rourke's sudden and aggressive illness. The idea of innocent young actors being targeted by a malevolent force invoked a deep sense of horror, mirroring the vulnerability of Caroline in the films and suggesting a sinister pattern beyond mere coincidence. The public's emotional investment in these young stars amplified the tragedy and the belief in an external, malevolent cause. Timing of the tragedies. The proximity of Dunne's murder just months after the first film's release, and O'Rourke's death during the filming of the third, created an immediate, visceral connection for many. It felt less like random chance and more like a direct, retaliatory consequence of delving into forbidden territories. This temporal correlation is a key driver of supernatural theories, as humans often seek patterns and causality in misfortune. Unusual and gruesome circumstances. While Beck and Sampson had pre-existing health conditions, their deaths still added to the eerie tally, especially considering their roles. Sampson's, given his real-life spiritual background and direct confrontation with the alleged entity, felt particularly significant. Lou Perryman's violent and senseless murder decades later, though less directly linked in time, resonated with the disturbing themes of real-world violence within the curse narrative, suggesting a long-reaching, malevolent influence. The use of real human skeletons, a profound act of disrespect and spiritual transgression. This detail is arguably the most potent origin story for the curse, acting as a potential trigger. Violation of the sacred. The knowledge that genuine human remains were used as props in the climactic pool scene of the first film, simply because they were cheaper than making artificial ones, is deeply disturbing and widely considered a profound act of disrespect for the deceased. In many cultures and belief systems, disturbing the dead, especially for entertainment, is considered a grave transgression, an act that can unleash vengeful or restless spirits. This ethical breach is seen by many as the direct catalyst for the curse. Mirroring the plot's central conflict, the irony is stark and chilling. The film's central premise involves a family tormented because their house is built on a desecrated burial ground, disturbing the repose of the dead. The actual use of real skeletons on set created a chilling, literal parallel to the film's fictional horror, making it feel as if the curse was written into the very fabric of the production itself, a direct invitation for the supernatural to manifest. This self-referential horror deeply unsettling. Actor discomfort and psychological impact. JoBeth Williams' genuine horror and visible discomfort upon learning the truth years later, and her recounting of an inexplicable unease, cold spots, and a palpable sense of wrongness during those specific scenes, lent significant credibility to the idea that the presence of real remains had a tangible, negative, and even spiritual effect on the set and those on it. She spoke of the emotional burden knowing she was splashing around with real human bones, a sentiment that resonated with many viewers and reinforced the idea of a violated sanctity. On-set paranormal activity and unexplained phenomena. Eyewitness accounts from numerous cast and crew members, often recounted in interviews and documentaries, describe events that defy rational explanation and contribute to the atmosphere of a truly haunted production. Mechanical malfunctions with malevolent intent. Oliver Robin's harrowing experience where the mechanical clown prop's arm began to genuinely strangle him during a take in Poltergeist wasn't just a technical glitch, it was a scene of a child being choked by a toy. A deeply unsettling and nearly fatal parallel to the supernatural attacks in the film. The precise and dangerous nature of such malfunctions felt deliberate and targeted to many, almost like a deliberate attempt to cause harm, hinting at an intelligent, malevolent force. Electrical disruptions and unexplained power fluctuations. Persistent reports of inexplicable power outages, flickering lights, cameras inexplicably jamming, and sound equipment picking up strange, disembodied noises, growls, whispers, static bursts. During filming, particularly around intense supernatural scenes, suggested an unseen energy actively interfering with the production. These weren't isolated incidents but a recurring pattern that unnerved experienced crew members who couldn't attribute it to faulty wiring or typical technical problems, leading them to suspect something paranormal. Moving props and phantom sensations. Stories of props vanishing from secure locations and reappearing in bizarre, visible spots, or of crew members feeling sudden, inexplicable cold spots, unseen touches, or even phantom presences on set, created an atmosphere of constant dread. These weren't accidental movements, they were perceived as subtle, intelligent manipulations by something unseen, a constant reminder of the film's themes bleeding into reality. The dirty set in Sampson's exorcism. Will Sampson's decision to perform an exorcism, stating he felt the set of Poltergeist 2 was dirty with negative energy, was a powerful endorsement of the supernatural theory from someone genuinely believed to possess such spiritual insight. His explicit verbalizations of sensing a malevolent force, and the subsequent alleged calming of the set after his ritual, further convinced many that a real malevolent presence was at play, which he directly confronted. This personal account from a spiritual practitioner provided a compelling, internal validation for the curse theory. Psychological impact and lingering dread. The intense subject matter of the films, combined with the bizarre occurrences, deeply affected some individuals involved, leaving a lasting psychological footprint. Disturbing dreams and nightmares. Reports from cast and crew experiencing vivid, unsettling dreams that mirrored the film's horrors or contained premonitions of misfortune suggested that the negative energy wasn't just on set but was following them home, infiltrating their subconscious minds. These weren't just scary movie dreams but often felt preternaturally real and disturbing, indicating a deeper psychological penetration of the alleged curse. Pervasive unease and anxiety. Beyond specific incidents, many described a constant, underlying feeling of dread, anxiety, or even paranoia during and long after production, a sense that something was off or that they were being watched. This emotional toll added to the lore, making the curse feel like a pervasive, unseen weight that impacted their well-being and personal lives, extending the horror beyond the film set. Other reported anomalies. While less frequently cited, some cast and crew reported strange occurrences in their personal lives following filming, such as paintings tilting on walls for JoBeth Williams or unexplained electrical phenomena in their homes. These personal anecdotes, though minor, reinforced the idea that the curse extended beyond the set and into the private spheres of those involved. James Caan, who wrote the film's novelization, recounted a particularly eerie incident where, while writing a stormy scene, A bolt of lightning struck his apartment building, causing a piece of his air conditioning unit to burst off and strike him from behind, a jarring, coincidental parallel to his work, making him question the boundary between fiction and reality. Media sensationalism and pop culture reinforcement, news outlets, documentaries, like E! True Hollywood Stories Curse of the Poltergeist, and horror enthusiasts have extensively covered these events, often presenting them in a way that emphasizes the supernatural connections, solidifying the legend. Narrative appeal. The idea of a cursed film is inherently fascinating and terrifying. It taps into primal fears about tempting fate, disturbing the unknown, and the blurring of fiction and reality. The Poltergeist story, with its ready-made plot about a haunted house and invading spirits, provided the perfect canvas for such a legend to flourish and become a staple of pop culture horror lore, ensuring its continued discussion. Confirmation bias. Once the curse theory gained traction, any subsequent misfortune or strange occurrence associated with the cast or crew, no matter how tenuous the link, was often immediately interpreted as further proof, reinforcing the existing belief system and making it difficult for skepticism to take root. Every new tragedy, even if decades removed, became another nail in the coffin of coincidence, continually validating the existing belief. While the cast and crew were often more open about their experiences and beliefs regarding the curse, the credited director and powerful producer of Poltergeist maintained a more reserved, often skeptical, stance on the supernatural claims, though their comments sometimes inadvertently added to the mystique. Tobe Hooper, credited director of Poltergeist, Hooper, known for his work on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, generally downplayed the curse rumors in interviews. He acknowledged the tragic deaths as deeply unfortunate coincidences but rarely, if ever, attributed them to supernatural causes directly related to the film. Focus on the craft. Hooper preferred to discuss the technical challenges and creative process of making the film, often emphasizing the immense effort involved in bringing the complex special effects to life. When asked about the curse in later interviews, he often expressed sadness for the victims but maintained that he saw it as a series of tragic accidents, not a supernatural hex, trying to steer the conversation back to the art of filmmaking. His rational perspective contrasted with the more speculative leanings of others. Addressing the real director controversy, Hooper often had to address the persistent rumors that Steven Spielberg effectively directed Poltergeist while Hooper was only nominally in charge. This contentious issue sometimes overshadowed discussions about the curse itself. Hooper consistently asserted his role as the director, emphasizing the collaborative nature of the project with Spielberg, while lamenting how an early LA Times piece, seeing Spielberg on set, fueled the perception that he was the primary director. This focus on the who directed it debate sometimes deflected from the more esoteric curse questions, serving as a significant backdrop to the film's production narrative. On Real Skeletons, while JoBeth Williams spoke out about the real skeletons, Hooper did not extensively comment on this ethical choice publicly, often leaving it to others, like special effects artist Craig Reardon, who confirmed their use, to explain the cost-saving rationale behind it. His relative silence, or lack of direct address on this specific point, could be interpreted in various ways, from a professional desire to move past it to a quiet acknowledgement of the unsettling nature of the decision without explicitly endorsing the curse. Steven Spielberg, producer and co-writer of Poltergeist. Spielberg's involvement in Poltergeist is complex. While credited as producer and co-writer, his hands-on approach and creative influence were widely acknowledged, leading many to believe he was the de facto director. His public statements regarding the curse were generally dismissive, framing the tragedies as unfortunate happenstance. Tragic coincidences. Spielberg's unofficial stance, conveyed through representatives or indirect comments, has consistently been that the deaths were horribly tragic and awful but had no relation to the events that took place on set in a supernatural sense. He attributed them to a string of terrible coincidences, a rational explanation for a series of misfortunes. This rationalization is typical of Hollywood professionals seeking to distance their work from potentially damaging supernatural claims. Maintaining professional distance. As a highly respected and rational filmmaker, Spielberg typically shies away from engaging with supernatural speculation regarding his productions, preferring to focus on the storytelling and human drama. His statements tend to emphasize the human element of grief and loss rather than endorsing theories of a curse, likely seeking to protect the memory of those who died from sensationalized supernatural claims. His stature in the industry gives his rational explanations a significant weight, even if they don't fully quell public speculation. Acknowledging the skeletons, indirectly. While Spielberg himself hasn't explicitly given extensive interviews on the real skeletons, the fact that the production chose to use them under his watch as producer is a key piece of the curse puzzle. The decision, though pragmatic for the time, was made under his creative oversight, which, for many, ties him into the controversial aspect that potentially triggered the supposed haunting, regardless of his personal belief in a curse. The revelation of the real skeletons only came out years after the film's release, adding another layer to the retroactive interpretation of the curse. Despite the decades that have passed since its initial release, Poltergeist continues to leave a profound impression on first-time viewers, often transcending the typical horror film experience. Common reactions reveal why the film's reputation, both as a horror classic and a potentially cursed production, endures. It's not just jump scares, it's genuinely unsettling and psychological. Many first-time viewers, especially those accustomed to modern horror, express surprise at Poltergeist's sustained atmosphere of dread rather than reliance on cheap scares. They comment on the masterful slow build-up of tension, the unsettling, surreal nature of the paranormal events, and how the film gets under your skin without constant gore. The horror feels organic to the environment and the unraveling sanity of the family, demonstrating a sophisticated approach to fear that resonates across generations. The family feels so real and relatable, which makes it terrifying. A recurring sentiment is how quickly viewers become invested in the Freeling family. People often remark on the authentic, lived-in dynamic between Steve and Diane Freeling, played by Craig T. Nelson and Jo Beth Williams, and their children. The opening scenes, showing them as a normal, slightly dysfunctional, loving family, make the subsequent horrors far more impactful. This strong character development makes the audience genuinely care about what happens to them, amplifying the fear of their ordeal and the profound violation of their safe space. The famous scene of Steve and Diane smoking a joint in bed and goofing around, for instance, often stands out as a moment that instantly humanizes them, making their plight all the more distressing. The special effects still hold up incredibly well for their time, very practical. Despite being over 40 years old, many first-time viewers are genuinely impressed by the practical effects and visual ingenuity. The warping rooms, the floating objects, the light coming from the closet, and especially the face-peeling scene, often cited as genuinely gross or sickening, or the skeletons in the pool, are often praised for their visceral impact and imaginative execution, even if some elements look dated by today's CGI standards. They appreciate the creativity and artistry involved in achieving such groundbreaking visuals, noting how practical effects often possess a tangible quality that CGI sometimes lacks. Carol Ann's "They Are Here" is iconic for a reason: pure chilling innocence. The innocent yet chilling delivery of this line by Heather O'Rourke, delivered from a trance-like state before the static-filled television, is consistently highlighted as a moment of pure cinematic terror. First-time viewers often describe it as the precise point where the film truly hooks them, signifying the turning point from playful oddities to malevolent, undeniable invasion. It's a phrase that instantly conjures the film's core fear and remains one of the most recognizable lines in horror cinema. It explores fears beyond just ghosts, about consumerism and home security. Many astute viewers pick up on the underlying societal anxieties that Poltergeist subtly addresses: the suburban dream built on superficiality, the dangers of television, as a passive, sometimes intrusive, and ultimately dangerous presence in the home, and the fundamental violation of the sanctity and safety of one's private dwelling. The film's ability to tap into these deeper, more universal fears contributes to its lasting power and relevance, making it more than just a surface-level horror film. I couldn't believe it wasn't rated R. It felt so intense. Given the intensity of some scenes, the clown attack, the tree attack, the skeleton sequence, the face peeling, many first-time viewers are surprised that Poltergeist initially received a PG rating. It was later re-rated PG-13 after the creation of the category, partly due to films like Poltergeist and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. This reflects the film's ability to generate intense horror and psychological distress without relying on excessive gore or overt violence, a hallmark of Spielberg's influence, and perhaps, the true horror of the unseen. The film's effectiveness in generating fear without explicit violence showcases its masterful direction and storytelling. Knowing about the curse while watching it adds another layer of creepiness that is hard to shake. For those who go into the film aware of the real-life tragedies associated with the cast and crew, the experience is often profoundly amplified. The innocent face of Heather O'Rourke or the vibrant performance of Dominique Dunne takes on a deeply unsettling quality, making the film feel almost meta-horrific, as if the cinematic scares were a terrifying prelude to real-world tragedy. This awareness transforms it from a fictional story into something potentially more sinister, a chilling document of real-life misfortune that makes the on-screen events even more horrifying. Viewers often report a lingering sense of unease that extends beyond the credits, an uncomfortable feeling that they have witnessed something truly touched by darkness. Poltergeist continues to resonate with first-time audiences because it's more than just a ghost story. It's a character-driven, expertly paced, and visually inventive horror film that taps into fundamental anxieties about family, home, and the unknown. This profound impact on viewers, combined with the grim tally of real-life tragedies and the chilling rumors from its production, ensures that the legend of the Poltergeist Curse remains as captivating, unsettling, and shrouded in mystery as the film itself. The film's ability to induce a sense of genuine dread and a lingering question of whether its creation disturbed something truly malevolent means its shadow continues to extend far beyond the silver screen, leaving an indelible mark on both horror cinema and popular culture's collective imagination.